Have you ever wondered what the very first rain your body remembers actually sounded like? Not the rain of this life, but the rain your genes remember. The rain that once fell on ancestors who had no walls, no roof, no light switch. Only stone and fire and the sound of water finding its way home in the dark. Somewhere underneath every modern night you've ever slept through. That older, wilder rain is still falling, patient and unhurried, waiting only for you to grow quiet enough to hear it again not welcome. Feel the weight of your own body sinking into the softness beneath you and the quiet safety of the room around you. Let your shoulders drop just slightly. Let your jaw soften. In a moment, none of this modern comfort will matter at all, because we are going to carry your mind back, far, far back, long before clocks, long before glass and streetlights, to a single rainy night tens of thousands of years ago, to a night that has been waiting quietly for you this whole time. There is a smell of fresh earth and wet stone drifting through the dark ahead of you. A smell so old, it seems to live somewhere beneath your thoughts. In a place your body remembers, even when your mind has long since forgotten. Instead of a blanket, imagine a cool current of air moving across your skin, and the settled, breathing stillness of a cave taking shape around you. You are simply here now, in that endless space before time was ever counted in hours, where the only clock that exists is the slow, steady falling of rain. Now, slowly, without any effort at all, you begin to drift toward that rainy night, down through the years, down through the centuries, down into the sheltered depths of a cave carved patiently from limestone and time. You do not need to close your eyes. Your mind has already started settling into that dim, quiet hollow on its own. Let the noise of your day, every tangled and hurried thought you carried with you tonight, fall gently behind you here, left at the mouth of the cave like wet footprints that the rain will quietly wash away by morning. Nothing in this moment matters more than the sound of that ancient rain and the cool, patient stone gathering around you. Your breath is already slowing. Your body is already growing heavier. And you are not simply remembering a story from some dusty page of history. You are arriving fully and completely inside the hush of that ancient, rain-soaked night, as if you had never truly left it at all. Somewhere at the mouth of the cave, the sky has turned the color of wet slate, and the first drop of water slides from a sharp lip of rock, falling onto a smooth shelf of limestone below. The sound it makes is small, but it is the first announcement that the night has truly begun. You are drawn toward the deepest, driest corner of the cave, and even from there, you feel the echo of that single drop moving through the air. In the world you came from, rain against double-paned windows was something you only ever watched, a silent, muffled show behind glass. Here, sound is everything. The meeting of water and stone leaves a fresh mark on a surface worn smooth by 10,000 nights, just like this one. You lean your back against the pale, steady wall of the cave, and you notice how this single, repeating sound slowly erases the clutter in your mind. Where the drop lands, dust turns dark and soft. Then it becomes the faint mud that carries that old and familiar scent of wet earth into the air around you. The rhythm of that falling water is too slow to race your heartbeat, but steady enough that you never forget it is there. In the age of stone, when this first drop fell, the forest's hunters went still, and the wild world folded quietly into itself. You feel yourself folding inward, too. Each drop takes today's tension and tomorrow's worry and leaves them on the wet stone at the entrance, and does not bring them back. Your eyes drift half open toward the mouth of the cave, where you imagine the small rings of water shimmering faintly in what little light remains. That shimmer is the last flicker your waking mind needs before it, too, dims and goes quiet. With every seventh drop, the sound deepens slightly as it lands in a small pool that has begun to gather on the cave floor. And this change in pitch feels like the cave itself taking a slow, contented breath. The scent of that gathering water mixes with the mineral hush of the stone, and this blend of cool, damp air fills your lungs completely. You feel the rain's rhythm as a kind of pendulum, swinging you gently between waking and sleep, between the noise of the world outside and the silence growing inside your chest. Above you, water has been finding secret paths through invisible cracks for longer than memory holds. And now a heavy, mineral-laden dampness reaches your skin from the ceiling of the cave. This is not simply moisture. It is a living residue, carrying within it thousands of years of sediment washed down from the heart of the earth. At the tip of a stalactite, a single droplet clings, gathering the last scraps of light before it lets go. And in the waiting for it to fall, you experience time in its purest, most patient form. In the age of stone, people surrendered to the deepest part of sleep, according to the rhythm of just such a seep, because this rhythm is nature's most honest clock. The mineral crust along the ceiling shifts the water's path with every small movement, and you follow that slow trickle in your mind, far removed from the fast, flickering data of the world you left behind. The damp air grows heavier, and that heaviness settles onto your eyelids like a hand resting there gently. Every so often, a droplet falls into a small hollow at the base of the cave, and the tiny, crystalline sound it makes seems to slice cleanly through the silence, and you feel that faint vibration travel through the stone and into your own bones. Where the stars once vanished behind rain clouds in those long-ago nights, the ceiling of a cave became someone's entire sky, and now it becomes yours as well. Every trace of seeping water above you becomes a small wellspring of peace, and a light shiver moves across your skin before dissolving instantly into a deeper, more complete relaxation dot at the center of the cave. Where the last coals of a dying fire glow, the meeting of water and flame builds a brief, crackling balance, perhaps the very first meditation sound humankind ever discovered. You are curled near the warm earth beside the embers, watching as a stray gust from the entrance carries a single fine raindrop down onto the coals. The soft hiss it makes is the moment the night's last flicker of light meets the cool relief of the rain. Instead of the flat, mechanical warmth of a thermostat you once controlled with a single button, here you feel the effort behind every spark and the scent that clings to that effort. Each droplet that lands on the embers rises as a small cloud of steam, and before it disappears into the sooty ceiling above, it carries the scent of burnt oak past your face. This scent speaks directly to the oldest part of your brain, delivering one simple message: you are safe here. The color of the coals shifts from a bright orange to a deep red, and finally to an ashen gray, and these slow color changes ease your mind along with them. As the fire fades, so does your grip on the outside world, and every 6 seconds or so, a fragment of ember cracks softly and releases the last of its warmth into the air. The rain hisses faintly against the coals, raising the moisture in the cave and making each breath just a little easier to take. The fire's slow dimming is not a loss. It is an invitation, a quiet surrender to the tenderness of the dark. The ribbons of steam rising from the embers drift like pale ghosts through the shadows on the walls. And this is the last visual signal your body needs before your eyes finally close on their own beneath your fingertips. You feel the rough but reassuring texture of the animal, hide spread beneath you, a texture that has absorbed the cold of 1,000 winters and finally surrendered to your own warmth instead. As you settle onto this heavy hide, you notice the coarse fibers underneath and the worn softness of fur above, brushing gently against your skin. Instead of memory foam or silk sheets, what surrounds you here is nature itself, direct and unfiltered. Every inch of that hide holds the hidden memory of an animal's days spent in mountain rain and sun. The scent of leather mixes faintly with dried grass, and it gives you a sense of belonging that feels older than any single memory you own. Every fifth breath, you feel this ancient hide settling into rhythm with your body, the light friction of coarse fur against skin slows your circulation and prepares you for the deepest valleys of sleep. In the age of stone, a hide was never simply property. It was a companion and a guardian, a thin, warm line drawn between life and the cold outside. Its weight lifts the last of that floating lightness from your body and seals you gently to the ground beneath you. On the cave wall, touched faintly by the fire's last light, a painted bison seems, for just a moment, to take a single slow step toward you out of the flicker of shadow. You lie on your back, watching the quiet theater that firelight and old pigment play together across the stone. These are not simply pictures. They are the visual echo of dreams, fears, and hopes carried by people tens of thousands of years before you, etched permanently into cold stone. Where a bright screen might strain your eyes, this dim and trembling play of light and shadow soothes your mind like a lullaby. Red ochre and black soot merge with the texture of the rock, and every spark from the fire gives these ancient lines a new depth. One shadow stretches, another shortens, and the curved shape of the cave turns these still images into a three-dimensional world of dream. You slip quietly into these old legends, and the outline of a hunter's raised spear, a fleeing deer, or a simple handprint pressed against stone, a silent "I was here," becomes your guide into the deepest layers of sleep. Beyond the cave's welcoming mouth. Out into the heart of the darkness, you hear the wind moving through the branches of ancient trees, a low, rolling sound like the forest taking one long, unhurried breath. Sometimes it rises, sometimes it falls into a deep hush, but it never fully stops. You feel this hum settle into your skin, because this is a sound you receive not only through your ears, but through your entire body. Millions of small rustles from leaves brushing together become, from a distance, one great breathing sound, echoing softly against the stone walls around you. In the age of stone, this steady hum was proof that the outside world still stood, still turned, still carried on with its slow and endless life. As the wind shifts direction, the tone of the sound shifts with it, sometimes thin and whistling, sometimes deep, as though rising from beneath the earth itself. You let your mind drift loose inside this changing but faithful rhythm. Like a leaf carried on a current of air dot, the scent of rain-soaked earth reaches you now, one of nature's oldest and purest perfumes. And you wonder, faintly, why this scent has always felt like coming home. Each raindrop striking the dry ground releases aromatic traces hidden deep in the soil, and they rise now in a heavy wave, drifting into the cave. As you breathe in the damp air, you can pick out the mineral notes and the faint, almost sweet scent of decaying leaves beneath it all. Unlike the synthetic room sprays of the world you came from, this scent is one of your body's oldest memories. For countless generations, your kind understood this smell as a signal of safety and abundance. Every time you draw it in, you feel your chest widen with a strange calm, and then settle again into deep relaxation. From somewhere below the cave, in the valley, the sound of a stream grows stronger with the rain, and this ceaseless murmur of water over stone might be the one true constant left in a night where everything else keeps shifting. The stream's endless conversation with the rocks wears down every sharp edge in your thinking, one small wave at a time. Unlike the mechanical, controllable trickle of a tap in a modern home, this river answers to no one. It is the wild symphony of its own will. Sleeping near moving water once meant staying close to the source of life itself, trusting its noise to cover the quieter sounds of anything that might be hunting nearby as the warmth of daylight retreats fully into the deep stone. The air inside the cave cools by careful degrees, and this slow chill settles onto your skin, not sharply, not suddenly, but the way nature always changes its mind, patiently. You pull the heavy hide a little closer, finding that perfect, narrow balance between the cold outside and the warmth your body still holds. In the age of stone, falling temperature was the surest sign that all movement should cease, that the body should turn fully inward. Your muscles tighten for just a moment against the cool air, then release completely, settling into their deepest resting state. Your heartbeat slows to match this cooling. Your breath deepens on its own dot in your palm. You hold the smooth, cool weight of a piece of flint, its sharp edges resting with quiet certainty against your skin, an object that has outlived generations and will outlive many more. You trace its curves with your fingers, and you understand, somehow, that this stone is not just a tool, but your most loyal ally in this wide, wild world. The stone's coldness slowly gives way to the warmth of your hand. And this small exchange of temperature settles your thoughts into a single, quiet point. A flash of white light tears across the sky for less than a second, lighting every crack and ridge of the cave wall, waking the painted animals from their stillness one final time before the dark swallows them again. In the world you came from, screens and streetlights blurred the difference between real darkness and real light. Here, light is raw, and it is offered to you only when nature decides. Every few seconds, waiting for the next distant flicker of lightning, pulls your sense of time out of its straight line and folds it into something circular, patient, unhurried. Beneath your bare feet, cool. Soft grains of sand fill the spaces between your toes, offering you the oldest, most natural bed the earth has ever made. Every small movement lets a few more grains settle into place, drawing the last of your body's static charge down into the ground. Unlike synthetic carpet or hard laminate flooring, this sand takes the exact shape of your foot and holds you there, weightless and supported all at once. Deeper still, past where even firelight dares to travel. The absolute darkness of the cave carries its own kind of language, a silence so complete it seems to have its own texture, like a heavy blanket laid gently over the world. In the Age of Stone, this deep hush was thought to be a place where ancestors' voices could still be heard, a kind of sanctuary of stillness. You feel that same silence now, wrapping fully around you, and it hushes even the small, restless voice inside your own mind, near the fire's very last embers. A dry branch splits quietly down its center with one thin, dry crackle, the night's gentlest goodbye and sleep's closest companion. Each little crack is the sound of ancient, stored energy finally released into the air, a small, humble farewell. As the fire dwindles, these sounds grow rarer, but each one lands a little deeper into the stillness of the cave, drawing your attention slowly inward. Beside you in the dark, the steady rise and fall of another person's breath offers the oldest, most honest message of safety a living creature can give. A body only breathes this deeply and this evenly when it truly feels protected. Where a modern, solitary bedroom might leave you with only the echo of your own breathing, here that quiet loneliness gives way to something shared, a sense of belonging older than memory itself. Your own breath begins, without any effort, to match that steady rhythm beside you. Outside, the wind brushes gently against the vines curtaining the cave's mouth, and the soft, rustling whisper of their leaves feels, somehow, like the murmur of a very old and familiar friend. This sound tells you, without words, the wind's direction, its strength, even the mood of the forest just beyond your reach. In the Age of Stone, this rustling was like an unseen hand knocking gently at the door of the cave, each knock a quiet confirmation that all was still well. From the damper corners of the cave, a faint scent of moss rises, leaving a small trace of sweetness at the back of your throat, the scent of thousands of years of quiet, patient life. This smell was once proof that water was near, that the shelter was healthy, alive, and durable. It ties you a little more firmly to the earth with every breath. You take Dot through the narrow strip of sky visible at the cave's entrance. Clouds drift by like slow, enormous shadows, reminding you just how unhurried time can actually be. This heavy, wandering motion is nothing like the fast blinking screens of the world you left behind. And as your eyes settle into this slowness, your mind begins to still in exactly the same rhythm. The weight of the thick hide across your body is not simply protection from the cold. It presses you gently, firmly down into the earth, like a hand holding you steady. This pressure sends one clear message through your nervous system. Asterisk, you are here. You are safe, you are held. Asterisk, and beneath its weight, every muscle in your body slowly gives itself fully over to gravity. Above your head, a dark, winding crack runs across the cave's ceiling, and in the last flicker of firelight, you watch the shadows play along its jagged path. This crack might have opened during some ancient tremor, or been carved slowly, patiently, by water over centuries. Either way, it becomes your last visual resting place before sleep, a small, private universe to wander through in your mind. Somewhere out in the wet dark, a night bird calls, its damp, broken cry oddly comforting rather than alarming. In the age of stone, a bird's call at night meant one simple thing. No great silent predator was near enough to silence it. You carry that same ancient knowledge in you now, and with every call, your shoulders loosen a little more, near your foot. Water gathering in a small stone hollow catches the fire's last glow like a quiet mirror, and the tiny ripples that spread with every falling drop pull your gaze gently inward, again and again, until your eyelids can no longer stay apart. In your palm rests a smooth, worn piece of bone, carrying within it the quiet memory of another creature's strength and motion. It is warmed now by your own hand, and this small exchange of heat closes the vast distance between you and the ancient night around you. The storm's breath rushes through the narrow opening of the cave, drawing out a high, wavering whistle from the rock, as though the mountain itself were singing you a lullaby. Sometimes it thins to something almost bird-like. Sometimes it deepens into something vast. And either way it draws your heartbeat down to match the pace of the world dot as the rain grows heavier still. The sharp, resinous scent of old pine bark rises from the forest and drifts into the cave. And breathing it in reminds you, somehow, that you belong here to this ancient earth, as much as anything else that has ever lived on it. You lean your back fully against the cool stone behind you, and every knot of your spine finds a small resting place along its uneven, ancient surface. This stone has held countless bodies before yours, and it will hold countless more after, and knowing this settles something deep and old inside your chest. Dry pine branch splits softly in the heart of the fire, releasing a thick, sweet, resinous scent into the damp air, and this scent seals shut, one by one, the last few doors still open in your mind, not far across the valley. Carried faintly on the wind comes the low, distant call of some great animal, and instead of fear, you feel only a quiet gratitude for the fire, for the stone, for the depth of your shelter here, Dot, at the muddy edge of the cave's entrance. The overlapping footprints left behind in the wet earth are a small, silent record of the day now finished, proof that everyone returned safely, that the hunt is over, that all ties to the outside world have, for tonight, gently loosened, and then, at last, the rain stops. Into the sudden hush, a fresh, washed scent of earth drifts through the cave's mouth, carrying with it the feeling of the world made new again. This is nature's oldest, most honest fragrance, and it settles over you fully now, sealing your eyes closed for the night. But the rain has not truly finished with the night, yet it only paused to catch its breath. And now it returns, softer than before, a gentle drizzle tapping against the leaves outside, like fingers testing the surface of a drum they have played 1,000 times before. You feel this softer rhythm settle over the cave like a second, lighter blanket laid on top of the first. There is no urgency in it now, only a slow, contented patter, as if the sky itself has grown tired and is easing itself down into sleep alongside you. The coals nearby glow a duller red now, and the warmth no longer reaches your face directly, only lingers in the air around your body like a memory of heat rather than heat itself. You notice how your own breathing has already begun to match this gentler rain, long, unhurried, and even. Somewhere above the entrance, water gathers along a ledge of stone and falls in a long, thin thread rather than individual drops. And this new sound, softer and more continuous, wraps around the cave like a low hum. You let this hum settle into the base of your skull, and you feel your thoughts, one by one, losing their sharp edges and becoming round and slow, like stones worn smooth by a very old river dot from somewhere near the back wall. In the deepest hush of the cave, you hear the small, quiet sounds of another creature stirring gently in sleep beside you. A low murmur, a soft shift of weight against packed earth, the faint whisper of breath catching briefly before falling back into its slow, steady rhythm. This is a child of your small clan, curled close to the warmth of the dying fire, and the innocence of that small sleeping sound settles something protective and calm deep in your chest. You feel, without needing to think it in words, that your presence here beside this small sleeping body is itself a kind of shelter, just as the cave's stone walls are a shelter for you both. The child's breathing rises and falls like a small tide, and you notice your own chest beginning to rise and fall in the same unhurried rhythm, as though your bodies were two halves of the very same slow, careful clock. Outside, the drizzle continues its quiet drumming, indifferent to time, patient beyond all patience, and you let it carry you further from the edges of waking thought, somewhere further back in your memory, or perhaps it is simply a dream beginning to take shape before sleep has even fully arrived. You recall the voice of an elder from your clan, someone whose face is soft and lined and lit only by firelight, speaking in a low, unhurried voice about the day's hunt. The words themselves blur and soften at the edges, the way words always do just before sleep pulls you under, but the tone remains, warm, steady, low, without urgency, the voice of someone recounting something that has already ended safely, something that no longer needs to be feared. You hear fragments, the deer moving through wet grass, the careful patience of waiting behind a fallen log, the quiet triumph of providing food for those who slept nearby. This story is not told to excite you or to keep you alert. It is told the way old stories are always told at the end of the day, softly, slowly, as a way of closing one chapter before opening the next, which is sleep itself. You feel your own eyelids grow heavier with each remembered phrase, as though the story itself were made of a fine, invisible weight settling gently onto your face, beyond the cave mouth. High above the drizzle and the dripping ledges, the clouds begin to thin in places. And for just a few seconds, a pale wash of moonlight spills down through a gap in the gray, touching the wet leaves outside with a soft silver sheen. You watch this light arrive and vanish, as the clouds drift and reshape themselves above the treetops. This moonlight is nothing like the harsh, constant glow of a screen or a street lamp. It is shy, temporary, offered only in brief glimpses. And because of this, each glimpse feels like a small gift rather than a demand on your attention. The silvered leaves outside seem, for a moment, to be dusted in a fine, cool frost of light. And then the clouds close again, and the darkness returns, deeper and more complete for having been interrupted. You find your gaze softening, unfocusing, no longer trying to hold on to any single point of light, simply allowing the moon's brief appearances to wash over you like something half seen in the corner of a dream. Deep within the cave, far past the reach of firelight, there is said to be a still, black pool of water fed by some hidden spring beneath the mountain, a place none of your clan has ever fully explored, its edges swallowed entirely by darkness. You do not need to see it to feel its presence. A faint coolness drifting from that direction, a stillness in the air that feels older even than the stone around you. Somewhere in that hidden dark, water rests without ever needing to move, patient in a way that makes even the slow drip from the ceiling seem hurried by comparison. You imagine, faintly, the surface of that unseen pool, black and undisturbed, reflecting nothing at all, because there is no light there to reflect, only a perfect ancient stillness. And you feel a small part of your own mind wanting to become like that pool, still, quiet, undisturbed, resting in darkness without needing to reach for anything at all dot nearby. Faint in the firelight, you can make out more of the ochre handprints pressed long ago into the cave wall, small marks left by hands not unlike your own, pressed flat against stone and outlined in red pigment blown gently from the mouth in a fine mist. Each handprint is a small, silent signature left by someone who once lay exactly where you lie now, who once watched this same wall by this same kind of firelight, who once let sleep take them in this exact spot. You feel, in some quiet and wordless way, connected to each of those hands, as though a long, unbroken chain of sleepers stretches back through the handprints on this wall, each one passing the cave and the night, and the safety of it on to the next. Your own hand resting now against the hide beneath you. Feels for a moment like just one more link in that ancient chain, warm and present and briefly here before it too, will one day rest quietly in memory. The darkness beyond the fire's reach is now almost total, and within that darkness, your mind begins to drift into shapes that are not quite pictures and not quite thoughts, soft, formless shifts of color and shadow that arrive and dissolve without any effort from you at all. This is the boundary where waking ends and dreaming begins, a space with no real name, where the mind lets go of its need to make sense of things and simply floats, weightless, in a kind of warm, dark water. You do not try to hold on to any of these shapes. You let them come and let them go, the way the rain outside comes and goes, the way the firelight raises and dims. There is no effort required here. There is only the soft, continuous permission to let go a little more with each passing breath. Very faintly, so faintly you almost mistake it for your own pulse. You feel the stone beneath you carry the smallest tremor, not an earthquake, nothing frightening, simply the deep, slow settling of rock that has stood in place for longer than any memory can reach. This tremor passes through the cave floor and into your body, and rather than alarming you, it reminds you of just how ancient and how solid the ground beneath you truly is. Mountains shift so slowly that a single human lifetime could never witness more than the faintest whisper of that movement. And yet here, tonight, you feel a small trace of it directly beneath your spine. This deep, patient movement of stone becomes, strangely, one more lullaby among many, a reminder that even the greatest, most permanent things in the world are, in their own impossibly slow way, still breathing, somewhere near the hide beneath you. A scattering of dried herbs and soft grasses has been laid down as bedding, and as your body shifts slightly, a faint, dry, sweet scent rises from beneath you, the scent of meadow flowers long since dried, mixed with the low, earthy note of crushed grass stems. This scent is nothing like the sharp chemical fragrances of the world you came from. It is soft, plant-born, and utterly without pretension. Someone gathered these grasses in the warmth of a long-ago afternoon, laid them here to soften the cold stone floor, and now, tonight, their quiet gift continues to serve its purpose, easing your body into rest, just as it eased the bodies of those who slept here before you. You breathe in this dry, sweet scent, and you feel, faintly, grateful, not in any grand or dramatic way, but in the small, wordless way the body feels grateful for warmth, or softness, or shelter dot far across the valley. Carried on the last remnants of the storm's wind comes the low, layered howl of a wolf pack calling to one another across some great distance. First one voice rising and falling, and then a second joining, and then a third, weaving together into a single, mournful, oddly beautiful chord that echoes faintly against the wet hillsides. You listen to this sound without fear, because you understand, in the old and instinctive part of your mind, that a wolf calling out to its pack is not a wolf that is hunting. It is a wolf confirming its place, checking that its family is near. doing exactly what you yourself are doing here in this cave, making sure that the ones it loves are safe and accounted for before the night deepens further. The howls rise and fade, and slowly the distance between each call grows longer, until at last they fall silent altogether, swallowed by the rain and the wind and the enormous quiet of the mountain dot that, dripping from the ceiling above, continues its slow, steady count, and you find yourself, without meaning to, counting along with it, not numbers exactly, but a soft, wordless rhythm, one drop, then a pause, then another, each one marking a small unit of time that has no name and no urgency attached to it. This counting is not something you do with effort. It happens on its own, the way your heartbeat happens on its own, the way your breath happens on its own. And slowly, this counting begins to blur, the gaps between drops growing longer and softer in your awareness, until you can no longer quite tell whether time is passing quickly or slowly, or whether it is passing at all, that you feel your body sinking further into the hide beneath you, and further still into the packed earth beneath that, as though gravity itself has grown heavier and kinder all at once, drawing you down not to crush you, but to hold you, the way the deep roots of a very old tree hold the soil around them. There is a sense, faint but unmistakable, that you are becoming a small part of the cave itself, that the boundary between your body and the stone, the earth, the dark, is beginning to dissolve, and that this dissolving is not frightening at all, but rather the most natural and comforting thing in the world. You imagine briefly that if someone were to walk past this spot 10,000 years from now, they would find only stone and silence here, and yet some small trace of this exact moment, this exact warmth, would somehow remain pressed into the ground, the way the ochre handprints remain pressed into the wall dot if ancestors watch over the living. As your clan believes they do, you imagine them now standing quietly, just beyond the reach of the firelight, neither near enough to be seen nor far enough to be entirely absent, simply present, the way a familiar shadow is present in a familiar room. Their imagined presence does not frighten you. It settles over you instead like an extra layer of protection, an unspoken agreement that nothing will disturb this night, that the boundary between the living and the dead is, for tonight at least, a gentle and peaceful one. You do not need to see their faces or hear their voices. It is enough to imagine them there, quietly keeping watch, the way you yourself might watch over a sleeping child dot outside. The season is beginning its slow turn from the fullness of autumn toward the deeper cold of winter. And somewhere in the wet leaves scattered near the cave's entrance, you imagine the last ripe berries of the year, dark and heavy with rain, waiting to be gathered in the pale light of morning. You recall, faintly, the taste of these berries from earlier days, a sharp sweetness followed by something deeper and more sour, a taste that always seemed to carry the whole of the season within it. This memory of taste is not vivid or demanding. It simply drifts through your mind the way a scent might drift through an open window, there and then gone, leaving only a faint impression behind, nearby, tucked into a fold of the hide, A small piece of amber catches the last dim light of the fire, its golden depths holding, somewhere inside, the ancient shadow of an insect trapped there long before your own kind ever walked this valley. You do not need to understand how such a thing came to be. It is enough to hold it faintly in your awareness. A small fragment of frozen time, a reminder that some things can rest suspended and safe for far longer than any single life. The amber's smooth, cool surface against your skin feels, in this moment, like a tiny echo of the enormous stillness of the cave itself. Slowly, so slowly you barely notice the change, the storm outside begins to loosen its grip on the sky. The rain thins further still, the wind eases, and in the wide gaps now opening between the clouds, a scattering of stars begins to reappear, faint and cold and impossibly distant, blinking into view one at a time like small fires lit far across an unimaginable dark. You watch these stars appear through the narrow strip of sky visible from where you lie, and you feel no need to name them or trace shapes between them. It is enough simply to watch them arrive, quiet and patient, indifferent to the passage of a single human night, exactly as they have arrived every clear night for longer than memory can hold. The last of the coals settle into a soft, ashen quiet, no longer glowing so much as remembering that they once glowed, and the cave around you grows correspondingly darker, softer, more complete in its stillness. Somewhere near you, the child's breathing continues its slow, even rhythm, and somewhere further back, you imagine the still black pool resting exactly as it has always rested, untouched and unbothered by anything above it. The wolves have long since fallen silent. The wind has eased into little more than a whisper through the vines at the entrance, and the rain, now barely more than a mist, continues to fall so lightly that you can no longer quite tell whether you are hearing it or only remembering the sound of it. You feel yourself drifting now through layer after layer of this deep, unhurried night, through the scent of wet stone, through the memory of firelight, through the low murmur of an elder's voice telling a story that has already ended safely, through the soft weight of fur and the cool press of stone against your back, through handprints left by hands long since turned to dust, through the faint, golden stillness of a trapped and ancient light. Each layer asks nothing of you. Each layer simply invites you to sink a little further, to let go a little more completely, to trust a little more fully that here, in this cave, on this rain-soft night, you are entirely and utterly safe. And so you continue to sink, past thought, past memory, past the last soft murmur of rain against leaves outside, down into the warm dark, endless quiet that has always waited, patiently, at the center of every night since the very first one, the same quiet that waited here long before you arrived, and the same quiet that will wait here long after you have gone, holding, gently, and without effort, every sleeper who has ever found their way to this ancient, sheltering stone. Somewhere in that deep, drifting quiet, you become aware again of the mouth of the cave, though you cannot say how much time has passed since you last thought of it. The mist outside has thickened now, rising from the wet ground in slow, pale coils that catch what little starlight filters down through the last thinning clouds. This mist does not move the way wind moves. It drifts, aimless and unhurried, the way smoke drifts from a fire that no longer has anywhere urgent to go. You watch it curl around the base of the vines at the entrance, wrapping the whole opening of the cave in a soft silver haze. And you feel this haze settle over your own mind in much the same way, blurring the sharp edges of thought until everything becomes soft, rounded, indistinct. It is the kind of mist that seems to hold the whole night inside it, folding the forest, the stream, the sleeping wolves, and the still black pool deep in the cave all into one single quiet breath. You notice, in this drifting stillness, the particular texture of the silence that follows a storm, not an empty silence, but a full one, thick with the small residual sounds of a world settling back into itself. A branch, heavy with rain, releases its water in one last slow drip. A leaf overburdened tips and spills its gathered droplets onto the leaf below it. Somewhere, the stream continues its endless conversation with the stones, though its voice has softened now, no longer swollen with the storm's urgency, but returned to its usual patient murmur. Each of these small sounds arrives and fades on its own schedule, with no relation to any other, and yet together they form a kind of loose, wandering harmony, like several old friends speaking quietly at once, none of them needing to be heard clearly. All of them simply glad of each other's company. You become aware, too, of the particular quality of warmth against your side, where the child still sleeps, curled close and unmoving now, deep in whatever dream a child dreams after a long day of walking and gathering and watching the world with wide, curious eyes. You do not know what that dream might hold. Perhaps it is only color, only softness, only the vague shape of the mother or father who carried them here. But you feel, in the steady warmth of that small body, a kind of anchor, something that keeps you tethered gently to this world, even as your own mind drifts further and further from it. This is perhaps one of the oldest comforts your kind has ever known, the simple, wordless reassurance of another breathing body close by, proof that the night is being shared, that no one here is truly alone in it. Further back in the cave, past the reach of any light at all, you imagine, though you cannot see it, the long, dark passage where the air grows cooler and cooler until it reaches a kind of absolute, unchanging temperature, a coldness that never rises in summer and never falls further in winter, a stillness untouched by the turning of the seasons above. You have never walked that passage yourself, not fully, not into its deepest reaches, but you have heard others speak of it in hushed voices around the fire, a place where sound itself seems to disappear, swallowed whole by rock, where even a shout would return only the faintest, most distant echo, if it returned at all. You do not need to fear that place tonight. It is enough to know it is there, deep and unchanging, a kind of anchor of stillness beneath the more restless world above, the same way you imagine the deep center of the earth itself must be still, and slow, and entirely undisturbed by the storms that pass across its surface. The scent of the mist reaches you now, mixing with the fading warmth of the coals and the dry sweetness of the herbs beneath you, a scent that is somehow both cool and warm at once, both new and impossibly old. You breathe it in slowly, letting it fill your chest fully before releasing it. And with each exhale, you feel a little more of the day's residue leaving your body, the way water leaves a cloth when it is wrung out gently, not all at once, but in slow, patient stages. There is no need to hurry this release. The night is long. The mist will still be there when you are ready for the next breath. And the one after that, and the one after that, you think, faintly and without urgency, of the path that led you here, not in any great detail, but simply as a series of soft impressions. The feel of wet leaves underfoot, the smell of crushed grass, the distant sound of the stream growing louder as you approached the cave, the first warm flicker of firelight glimpsed through the vines at the entrance. These impressions do not ask you to relive them fully. They simply pass through your mind the way clouds pass across the narrow strip of sky above the cave mouth, noticed, acknowledged, and then allowed to continue on their way, making room for whatever drifts through next. So we're above, though you cannot see it through the cave's stone ceiling. You imagine the full sweep of the night sky beginning to clear, stars scattered in their old, familiar patterns, the same patterns your ancestors traced with their eyes on countless nights before this one, the same patterns that will still be traced by eyes not yet born, long after your own has closed for the final time. There is something deeply calming in this thought, not sad, not heavy, simply vast, the sense that you are one small, warm point of awareness within an enormous patient continuity, held gently between all those who came before and all those who will come after, exactly as the stone around you is held between the earth beneath it and the sky above it. The dripping from the ceiling has slowed further now, each drop separated from the last by a longer and longer stretch of silence, until the gaps themselves seem to become the more prominent feature rather than the drops. You rest inside these lengthening silences the way you might rest inside a held breath, patient, unhurried, trusting that the next small sound, when it comes, will only deepen your ease rather than disturb it. This slowing is, in its own quiet way, a kind of permission, a signal from the cave itself that the night has reached its calmest, most settled hour, the hour in which even water forgets to hurry. You feel the last trace of tension leaving the muscles around your eyes. A small, specific release that seems to unlock something deeper beneath it. The muscles of your jaw loosening, your tongue resting soft and heavy in your mouth, your throat opening slightly as your breath continues its slow, even passage in and out. This release moves downward through your body like a wave with nowhere urgent to arrive. Past your shoulders, which drop a fraction further into the hide beneath them. Past your chest, which rises and falls now almost imperceptibly. Past your stomach, your hips, your thighs, your calves, all the way down to your feet, still faintly warmed by grains of sand from earlier in the evening. Now resting utterly still, somewhere in the deepest part of your mind, a single, quiet thought forms and dissolves almost as soon as it arrives. Not a worry, not a plan, simply the faint, wordless recognition that you are safe, that you are warm, that the night outside has done its work and is now settling into its own long rest, just as you are settling into yours. You do not need to hold on to this thought. It is enough that it passed through, leaving behind only a faint residue of calm. The way a single ripple leaves behind only a faint smoothness on the surface of still water, long after the ripple itself is gone. The mist outside continues its slow, aimless drift past the cave entrance, and within it, faintly, you imagine you can make out the shapes of the trees beyond tall, dark, patient shapes standing exactly where they have always stood, their branches heavy now with rain rather than leaves lost to any storm, their roots holding fast to the same soil that has held them for longer than any single season could account for. These trees do not hurry, and so, in their quiet company, neither do you. You let your own stillness match theirs, rooted, patient, entirely unconcerned with anything beyond this one long, slow night not far above the mist, past the last thinning edges of cloud. The moon has begun to clear more fully now, casting a pale, gentle light down across the wet forest, silvering the tops of the trees and the surface of the distant stream. You do not need to see this light directly to feel its presence. It reaches you instead as a kind of soft undertone beneath the darkness of the cave, a faint sense that somewhere above, the sky has grown calm and clear and watchful, holding its quiet vigil over the sleeping forest below. This vigil asks nothing of you except that you rest beneath it, trusting that it will still be there in the morning. Exactly as it always is, you become aware, faintly, of the shape of your own body resting against the hide and the stone, not as something to examine or adjust, but simply as a familiar weight, a familiar warmth, a familiar presence that has carried you through the day and now asks only to be allowed to rest. There is a kind of quiet gratitude in this awareness, wordless and uncomplicated, the same gratitude the ground might feel for the rain that has just fed it, or the same gratitude the stream might feel for the stones that shape its course. You do not need to earn this rest. It is simply yours, offered freely by the long, patient night, somewhere, very faintly. You hear the last few notes of the wind moving through the vines at the entrance, softer now than at any point earlier in the night, barely more than a breath moving through leaves. This sound arrives and fades, each time a little quieter than the last, until at last it seems to dissolve entirely into the surrounding hush, leaving behind only the cave's own deep, internal silence, the silence of stone that has stood for 10,000 years and will stand for 10,000 more, entirely unconcerned with the small, warm, temporary life resting quietly within it tonight, and within that vast, patient silence you continue to rest, held by stone, warmed by fading embers, wrapped in fur and mist, and the low murmur of a stream too far away to hurry you, too close to ever quite leave your awareness. Layer by layer, breath by breath, thought by thought, you let go of everything that is not this moment, until only this moment remains. Warm, dark, quiet, and entirely, completely safe. The rain, long since faded to nothing more than a memory of sound, leaves behind only the scent of earth, rising softly through the mist at the cave's entrance, drifting inward to settle over you one final time, the oldest, gentlest scent your kind has ever known, carrying within it every safe night that has ever been slept beneath stone, every fire that has ever been tended by careful hands, every breath that has ever slowed, deepened, and finally let go. And yet, even in the deepest hush, the night is not quite finished offering you its small, quiet gifts. Somewhere near the cave mouth, you become aware of a single late moth drifting in from the darkness, drawn faintly toward the last dim glow of the coals, its wings moving in slow, soundless beats through the misty air. It circles once, twice, unhurried, never quite touching the fading warmth, before drifting back out into the night as easily as it came. You watch this small, weightless motion without any need to understand it, and something about its quiet, aimless drifting mirrors exactly the drifting of your own mind, circling gently around the edges of sleep, never quite touching down, never quite needing to. Further back, in the folds of the hide where your hand rests loosely, you feel the faint, dry rustle of a few fallen leaves that found their way in earlier with the wind, pressed now beneath the weight of your palm. Their thin, brittle texture is nothing like the smooth stone or the soft fur elsewhere around you. And this small contrast, dry against soft, brittle against solid, grounds you gently in the specific, textured reality of this one particular night, distinct from every other night that has ever been slept in this cave, and yet also, somehow, exactly the same as all of them. You notice, faintly, the way the darkness itself seems to have layers. The way a body of water has layers. A lighter, warmer darkness near the entrance, touched still by the faint silver of the clearing moon, and a deeper, cooler darkness further back, near where the black pool rests untouched. You imagine your own awareness drifting slowly between these layers, dipping first into the lighter dark, then sinking gradually into the deeper one, the way a stone dropped into still water sinks slowly, unhurried, past layer after layer until it finally settles, weightless and complete, on the quiet floor below. A single ember, hidden until now beneath a fold of gray ash, catches a last breath of air and glows briefly orange before dimming again. A small, private flare of warmth that no one but you notices. A tiny secret shared only between the fire and your own half-closed eyes. This brief glow reminds you, faintly, of how much warmth can remain hidden, even in something that appears, on the surface, to have already gone quiet, and you feel, in your own chest, a similar hidden warmth, banked low now beneath the surface of your thoughts, patient and unhurried, asking nothing of you except that you allow it to simply exist there, glowing softly, needing no attention at all outside. The mist has begun to settle lower, no longer rising in slow coils, but instead pooling along the ground like a pail. Silent lake, filling every hollow and every low place between the roots of the trees. You imagine this ground mist stretching out across the whole valley, soft and white and undisturbed, covering the sleeping world in one continuous, gentle blanket, exactly as the hide covers your own body here inside the cave. Somewhere beneath that mist, small animals curl into their own burrows. Birds tuck their heads beneath their wings. And even the stream, though it never stops moving, seems to move more slowly now, hushed by the same deep quiet that has settled over everything else. You think, without any real effort of thought, of the many nights that must have passed exactly like this one, stretching backward through the years of your own life, and further still, backward through the lives of your parents, and their parents before them, each one finding their own version of this same cave, this same fire, this same fur laid over tired limbs. There is no need to count these nights or name them. It is enough to feel their accumulated weight resting gently behind you, like a long, soft trail leading back through time, each night adding one more layer of safety to the ground beneath you, until the cave itself feels less like stone and more like something built, slowly and patiently, entirely out of rest, somewhere near your feet. The last warmth from the sand you walked through earlier in the evening has almost entirely faded now, leaving only a faint residual coolness that matches the deepening chill of the night air. You do not mind this coolness. It arrives softly, gradually, giving your body ample time to adjust. The way all true changes in nature arrive, not suddenly, not harshly, but through countless small, patient degrees, each one so slight it can hardly be noticed on its own. And yet together they carry you fully from one state into another, from waking into rest, from evening into night, from the storm's noise into this long, settled quiet dot. You become aware, faintly, of the particular hush that surrounds a body on the very edge of sleep, a hush that is not silence exactly, but something both softer and fuller than silence, a kind of thick, velvet quiet that seems to hold sound rather than simply lack it. Within this hush, even your own heartbeat feels muffled, distant, as though heard through several layers of fur and stone rather than felt directly in your chest. This muffling is not troubling. It is, instead, one more sign that your body has begun the slow work of letting go, of releasing its grip on wakefulness one small, quiet notch at a time not far above, though the cave ceiling hides it entirely from view. You imagine the last few clouds finally clearing away completely, leaving behind a sky scattered thick with stars, more of them than could ever be counted, stretching in a vast, silent arc from one dark horizon to the other. You do not need to see this sky to feel its calm. Distant presence pressing gently down upon the whole sleeping valley. The same sky that has watched over every night. Your kind has ever slept beneath it. Unchanging, patient, indifferent in the gentlest possible way to the small, warm dramas of any single life lived beneath its light. somewhere near the back of the cave, in a shadow too deep for even the last embers to touch. You imagine, though you cannot be certain, the faint outline of tools laid carefully aside for the night, a worked stone blade, a coil of braided sinew, a small pouch of gathered herbs, each object resting exactly where careful hands placed it, ready and waiting for the work of tomorrow, but asking nothing of you tonight. There is a particular comfort in imagining these objects resting quietly in the dark, patient and unused, the way your own body now rests, patient and unused, waiting simply for the night to complete its slow work upon you. You notice, faintly, that the child beside you has shifted very slightly closer in sleep, seeking, perhaps without any conscious awareness at all, the last remaining warmth of your body against the cooling air. You do not move away. Instead, you let this small shift settle naturally. Let the added warmth between you become one more small, wordless comfort added to all the others gathered here tonight. The fire, the fur, the stone, the mist. The stars unseen but felt above dot the stream outside continues its endless, patient murmur, now barely louder than a whisper carried on the last. Faint traces of wind. You let this sound become the quiet floor beneath all your other sensations, beneath the fading ember glow, beneath the dry rustle of leaves under your hand, beneath the child's slow breathing, beneath your own. It asks nothing of you except that you allow it to continue, exactly as it always has, exactly as it always will, long after this particular night, this particular fire, this particular breath, have all faded quietly into whatever comes next dot, and so, breath by breath, thought by thought, layer by patient layer, you continue to sink further into this deep, ancient rest, carried gently by stone that has held countless sleepers before you, by fire that has warmed countless hands before yours, by fur that has covered countless tired bodies through countless long, rain-soaked nights just like this one. There is nothing left to hold on to, and nothing that needs to be held. There is only the soft, dark, endless quiet of the cave and your own slow, steady breath moving gently within it, and the deep, unhurried knowledge that here, tonight, you are held completely and safely, and without any need to wake again until the night has finished its long, patient work, somewhere beyond the edge of sleep, in that soft borderland where thought loosens its grip entirely. You find yourself walking, though your body has not moved at all, along the same path that led you to this cave. But now the path feels different, wider somehow, softer underfoot, as though the earth itself has grown kinder in the retelling. You pass the same trees, the same bend in the stream, the same scattering of pale stones along the bank. But everything moves at half its usual speed, unhurried, dreamlike, patient in the way that only the edges of sleep can be. This is not a memory exactly, and not quite a dream either. It is something in between, a soft rehearsal of rest that your mind performs quietly before letting go completely. You imagine, faintly, the shape of the mountain rising above the cave, vast and dark against the now clearing sky, its peak lost somewhere in cloud or shadow, or simply distance too great for your eyes to measure. This mountain does not move. It has not moved in all the years your kind has walked past its base, gathering berries along its lower slopes, tracking deer through its forested shoulders, seeking shelter in the hollow places carved slowly into its stone by water and time. You feel, faintly, the enormous, patient weight of that mountain settling protectively over the cave, over the fire, over the fur, over your own small, warm body resting here tonight, the way a parent's hand might rest, without pressing, on the back of a sleeping child, somewhere deep within your own chest. You notice a small, steady warmth that has nothing to do with the fire nearby, nothing to do with the fur draped over your shoulders. A warmth that seems to rise instead from somewhere further inside, from the simple, wordless fact of being alive, of having survived another day, of having found shelter once again beneath stone and starlight. This warmth asks nothing of you. It does not need to be understood or explained. It is simply there, quiet and constant. The way a small ember continues to glow long after the flames around it have gone dark, you become aware, faintly, of the particular quality of stillness that settles over a body just before true sleep arrives, a stillness in which even the smallest, most habitual movements finally cease. The fingers that have been curling and uncurling slightly against the fur now rest motionless. The toes that have been shifting gently in the cool sand now lie still. The eyes that have been drifting half open and half closed now settle, at last fully closed, without any further effort required. This stillness is not empty. It is full, complete, and entirely without urgency. The stillness of a lake at the exact moment the wind finally dies, when even the smallest ripple has faded and the surface becomes, for the first time in hours, perfectly and utterly smooth. Somewhere near the cave's entrance, the last of the mist begins to thin, drawn slowly upward by some faint shift in the cooling night air, revealing, in patches, the dark silhouette of the forest beyond, trees standing exactly as they always have, patient guardians of a valley that has slept beneath their branches for longer than any single life could measure. You do not need to watch this thinning mist closely. It is enough to sense it happening, slowly, gently. At the very edge of your awareness, one more small process unfolding in its own time, asking nothing of you, offering only its quiet, wordless company. You notice faintly a distant and almost imperceptible vibration passing through the stone beneath you, not the deep, slow tremor of the mountain settling, but something smaller, quicker, more rhythmic, perhaps the far-off footsteps of some large, unhurried animal moving through the wet undergrowth many hillsides away, its weight pressing gently into ground that carries the faintest trace of that pressure all the way here, into the stone beneath your back. This distant rhythm does not alarm you. It arrives instead as one more small proof that the world beyond the cave continues its slow, patient life even as you rest, that the night is full and busy and alive in its own quiet way. entirely independent of your own small drifting awareness. Somewhere in the deepening dark, you imagine the shapes painted on the cave walls beginning to lose their edges entirely, dissolving softly into the surrounding shadow as the last embers finally fade to nothing more than a dim, ashen memory of warmth. The bison, the deer, the small red handprints, all of them settle back into the stone from which they were never truly separate, becoming, once again, simply part of the rock itself, patient and unseen, waiting for the next flicker of firelight to call them briefly back into visible shape. You feel your own thoughts doing something similar now, losing their edges, softening back into the quiet stone of your own mind, waiting for nothing, needing nothing, simply resting in the dark. You become aware, faintly, of the particular scent that arises when rain-soaked earth finally begins to dry just slightly beneath a sheltering roof of stone, a scent lighter than the heavy, mineral richness of the storm's peak, something closer to the smell of old leaves settling quietly into soil, patient and unhurried, the smell of a process that will continue slowly through the whole of the night without ever needing to hurry toward completion. This scent reaches you now only faintly, at the very edge of perception. One more small thread woven into the larger fabric of comfort surrounding you. Somewhere close by, you sense rather than hear the slow, steady rhythm of your own pulse, no longer racing with any trace of the day's exertion, but settled now into a slow, even beat that seems to match, almost exactly, the last remaining drips falling from the ceiling far above. Heartbeat and water drop and heartbeat. Two separate rhythms drawing closer and closer together until they seem, in your drifting awareness, to become almost the same single, patient pulse, the pulse of the cave itself, ancient and slow and endlessly repeating, of which your own small heartbeat is only one brief, temporary echo. You imagine, faintly, generations of your kind who have lain exactly here, in this exact hollow of stone, feeling this exact slow pulse beneath their own ribs, each of them, in their turn, drifting off into a sleep indistinguishable from the one now settling over you. There is no loneliness in this thought, only a vast, quiet companionship stretching backward through unimaginable spans of time. A companionship that asks nothing of you except that you, too, allow yourself to rest fully, exactly as they did, trusting the cave, trusting the fire, trusting the fur, trusting the mountains standing patient and unmoving above you, all dot far above. Unseen but felt, the stars continue their slow wheel across the clearing sky, indifferent and eternal, casting down a light so faint it could never disturb your rest. Only accompany it, a silent audience of impossibly ancient fires, watching over this one small, warm temporary fire below, and the small, warm, temporary lives gathered around it. You let this vast, quiet watchfulness settle over you like one final layer of protection, softer than fur, more enduring than stone, older than the mountain itself dot, and in this final layer of stillness, thought gives way entirely to rest. There is no more path to imagine walking, No more story to half remember. No more distant sound to notice arriving and fading. There is only the deep, unbroken quiet of the cave, the slow, patient pulse shared between your own heart and the last dripping water above, and the soft, complete darkness holding you, gently and without effort, the way it has held every sleeper who has ever found their way to this ancient shelter, and the way it will continue to hold every sleeper still to come, long after this particular rain, this particular fire, this particular night, have all become nothing more than one more layer of quiet sediment settled softly into the enduring stone. Still, the night is patient, and it is not quite finished with you yet. There is one more slow circle to travel before the deepest, rest of all arrives. One more gentle turning of attention through the cave. The fire, the fur, the stone, before your mind finally lets go of even the need to notice these things at all. You become aware again, faintly, of the fire's very last coal, so small now it is barely more than a point of dull red light beneath its blanket of soft gray ash. It no longer offers any real warmth to the air around it, only the faintest suggestion of warmth, a memory held in color rather than heat. And yet you find this last small coal comforting precisely because of its smallness, a reminder that even the most modest, quiet things can continue patiently long after they seem to have finished, glowing softly in the dark, simply because that is their nature, without any need for recognition or attention. Somewhere near the cave's entrance, the mist has thinned to almost nothing now, leaving behind only a faint dampness in the air, cool and clean, carrying the last traces of rain-washed leaves and whetstone. You breathe this air in slowly, feeling it travel down through your throat and into your chest, spreading outward with each breath like ripples, moving outward from a stone dropped into still water. There is nothing left to hurry toward. The storm has passed. The fire has faded. The mist has lifted. All that remains is this slow, steady exchange of breath, in and out, in and out, each one a little slower and a little deeper than the one before. You think faintly and without any real effort of your own body as something very old and very simple, not a collection of worries or plans or unfinished tasks, but simply a warm breathing shape resting against stone, exactly as countless other warm breathing shapes have rested here before you, and exactly as countless more will rest here long after you are gone. This thought does not frighten you. It settles instead like a soft, wide hand across your chest, steady and reassuring, reminding you that you are part of something far larger and far older than any single night, any single storm, any single fire. Somewhere in the deep, unlit passage toward the back of the cave, you imagine the still black pool resting exactly as it has rested for centuries, untouched by wind, untouched by rain, untouched even by the faint tremors that pass occasionally through the surrounding stone. Its surface, if it could be seen at all, would show nothing but perfect, unbroken darkness, no reflection, no ripple, no disturbance of any kind. You let your own mind become, for a moment, like that hidden pool, still dark, undisturbed, resting far beneath the reach of any storm, any worry, any waking thought. The last few drops of water fall from the ceiling far above, landing now so quietly, so slowly, that entire long minutes pass between one drop and the next. You no longer try to anticipate when the next one will fall. You simply rest inside each long, patient silence, trusting that whatever comes next, whether it is another drop or simply more silence, will only deepen your ease rather than disturb it. This trust asks nothing of you. It is not something you build or maintain through effort. It is simply the natural result of a body and a mind that have, at last, fully surrendered to rest. Somewhere close beside you, the child's breathing has slowed further still, deep and even and untroubled, each breath a small, steady proof that safety and warmth have done their quiet work completely. You feel your own breath settling into that same unhurried rhythm, no longer needing any conscious attention to remain slow, and even simply continuing on its own, the way a river continues to flow long after anyone has stopped watching it. You imagine, faintly, the whole valley outside now settling into its deepest hour of rest. The stream quieted to little more than a murmur. The wolves long since fallen silent. The mist lifted, the clouds cleared, the stars turning their slow, patient wheel above a world that has, for now, entirely stopped moving. Even the wind has grown still, leaving the vines at the cave's entrance, hanging motionless, undisturbed, exactly as they will remain until the first pale hint of morning light eventually stirs them again. Many long hours from now, you become aware, faintly, of the specific and total absence of urgency in this moment. No task waiting to be finished, no decision waiting to be made, no threat waiting to be watched for. There is only the stone beneath you, the fur above you, the quiet breath beside you, and the vast, dark, patient night surrounding all of it. This absence of urgency is not emptiness. It is fullness of a different kind, the fullness of a cup finally allowed to sit undisturbed after being carried carefully, without spilling, for a very long day, somewhere deep inside your own chest. That small, steady warmth you noticed earlier continues to glow, quiet and constant, needing nothing from you except your continued willingness to simply exist beside it, breath after breath, without analysis, without effort, without any need to understand exactly what it is or where it comes from. It is enough that it is there. It is enough that it is warm. It is enough that it asks nothing of you at all. You feel your thoughts slowing now to something barely thoughts at all. Soft, wordless impressions drifting past one another without any need to connect or resolve into meaning. The stone, the fur, the fire's last small coal, the child's slow breath, the distant, silent stars. Each impression arrives, is noticed faintly, and dissolves again into the surrounding dark, making room for the next or for nothing at all, whichever comes. And somewhere in this soft, dissolving quiet, the boundary between your waking mind and your sleeping mind grows thinner and thinner, until at last it disappears altogether, and you slip gently and without any sense of falling, into the deep, unbroken rest that this whole long night has been patiently preparing for you, held by stone, warmed by memory, watched over by stars too distant and too old to ever hurry you, resting exactly as every sleeper before you has rested in this ancient, sheltering place, and exactly as every sleeper still to come will one day rest here too, long after this particular rain, this particular fire, and this particular quiet, careful telling of the night have all faded softly into stone. And even now, in this deepest hour, the cave offers one last, slow gift before it finally lets you go completely into sleep. Not a new sound, not a new scent, but simply the quiet accumulation of everything that has already been given tonight, gathered together into a single, wide, wordless feeling of being held. You feel the stone beneath your back, patient and unmoving, exactly as it has been all night, exactly as it will remain long after morning finally comes. You feel the fur across your shoulders, heavy and warm, carrying within its fibers the memory of sun and rain and some distant creature's long life in the mountains above. You feel the last faint trace of firelight somewhere at the very edge of your closed eyes, dim now almost to nothing, asking nothing of you except that you allow it to fade completely in its own unhurried time. You feel the small, steady warmth of the child sleeping close beside you, breath slow and even untroubled, safe. You feel the distant, silent watchfulness of stars you cannot see, but somehow still sense, turning their ancient, patient wheel above a valley that has, for this one long night, entirely stopped hurrying. You feel the deep, unmoving stillness of the black pool, resting somewhere far back in the dark, undisturbed, complete, asking nothing, offering only its own quiet example of what it means to rest fully. All of these things gather now, softly, into one single sensation, not a thought, not quite a feeling, simply a wide, warm, wordless knowing that you are safe, that you are held, that nothing is required of you except to continue breathing slowly, evenly, gently, for as long as the night wishes to hold you here. This knowing does not need to be examined. It does not need to be understood or explained or even remembered in the morning. It simply needs to be allowed, fully, completely, the way the cave allows the rain, the way the stone allows the water, the way the deep, ancient dark allows every small, warm, temporary life that ever finds its way inside it to rest exactly as long as it needs to. You let go now of the last small threads still tying your mind to wakefulness, the faint awareness of your own breathing, the faint awareness of the stone beneath you, the faint awareness of the child's warmth beside you. One by one, these threads loosen and fall away, not abruptly, not with any sense of loss, but gently, naturally, the way leaves let go of a branch when autumn has finally fully arrived. There is no need to hold on to any of them. The cave will still be here. The fire will still have been real. The child will still be breathing softly beside you. None of it needs your attention any longer tonight, Dot, and so you drift. Now, past the last edge of thought entirely, into the wide, dark, patient quiet that has been waiting for you since the very first drop of rain fell against limestone at the start of this long night. The same quiet that waited for every sleeper who ever found shelter in this ancient stone, and the same quiet that will go on waiting patiently, endlessly for every sleeper still to come. Here, in this final stillness, there is nothing left to notice, nothing left to feel, nothing left to understand. There is only rest, deep, complete, unbroken rest, held gently by stone older than memory, warmed faintly by embers already turning to ash, watched over by stars too distant and too patient ever to ask anything of you at all. But before that final stillness fully closes over you, let your attention drift once more, slowly, through a few last corners of the cave, gathering each one gently, the way a hand might gather loose grain before letting it fall. Notice the particular coolness now settled into the stone beneath your fingertips, no longer sharp or startling as it was earlier in the night, but soft, familiar, almost welcoming, the way a well-worn path becomes familiar to bare feet after many crossings. This coolness no longer asks anything of your body. Your body has already answered it hours ago by growing warm enough within the fur to no longer notice the difference. Stone and skin have reached their own quiet agreement, and neither needs anything further from the other tonight. Somewhere far outside, beyond the last thinning traces of mist, you imagine a lone fox moving low and unhurried along the edge of the tree line, pausing now and then to lift its head toward the clearing sky, its breath visible for a moment in the cold night air before dissolving into nothing. It does not know you are here, resting deep within the stone, and you do not need it to know. Its quiet, patient movement through the dark forest is simply one more small proof that the night continues, its own slow life all around you, indifferent and gentle, asking nothing, disturbing nothing. You notice, faintly, that the deepest part of the night has arrived, that particular, unmistakable hour when even the most restless thoughts finally grow too tired to hold their shape, when the whole world, near and far, seems to lean quietly toward stillness all at once. The fire has become memory. The rain has become scent. The wind has become nothing more than a faint stirring somewhere at the very edge of hearing. And your own mind, following this same pattern, has become soft, slow, and almost entirely without edges. You feel, one final time, the whole weight of the hide across your body, heavier now than at any earlier point in the night, not because it has grown heavier in truth, but because your own body has grown so completely relaxed beneath it that even its familiar weight now feels like something closer to gravity itself, patient, total, and impossible to resist, nor is there any reason left to resist it. Let this be the last thought you notice tonight, that you are exactly where you need to be, held by exactly what you need to be held by, warmed by exactly enough warmth, surrounded by exactly enough quiet, and that nothing further is required of you now except the simple, effortless act of continuing to breathe slowly, evenly, safely, until sleep has taken you fully into its keeping. Somewhere, very far off now, past the fox moving along the tree line, past the last fading warmth of the coals, past even the memory of the storm itself. You sense the whole valley settling into that particular hour before the very first hint of dawn, an hour with no name, no measured length, an hour that exists only for rest, untouched by any clock, any duty, any reason to wake. You do not need to wait for morning. Morning will arrive on its own schedule, gently, eventually, long after you have already sunk far past any place where its arrival could concern you. You feel, one last time, the whole cave around you as a single, unified presence rather than a collection of separate things, not stone and fur and fire and breath, but simply one wide, warm, ancient shelter, holding you the way it has held every tired body that has ever found its way inside it. There is no separation left between you and this shelter. You have become for tonight simply another small part of its long, patient story. Let every remaining thread of thought loosen now, gently, one final time, and fall away into the dark. There is nothing left to notice. There is nothing left to hold. There is only rest, deep and complete, stretching out before you like the whole quiet length of the night. Itself, the rain has ended. The scent of earth has filled every corner of the cave dot, and now only your deep, unshakable, and utterly peaceful sleep begins.